Hello and welcome everyone on this official platform of Legacy Eyes Academy. So as you can see here, this editorial which is related to Canadian PM's Mark Carney's full speech at Davos. This is something which is related to middle powers must act. Now what is this issue? See, there is a sentence from ancient history that still rules our world today. And it was written over 2400 years ago by Thucydides, a great ancient Athenian historian who says that the strong do what they can, the weak suffer what they must. A famous Thucydides quotation. For decades, we told ourselves this sentence no longer applied. We said the world had changed, that rules had replaced raw power, that institutions must protect everyone equally. But what if that was never true? What if the world you were taught to believe in the rules based on international order? It was only a story we kept repeating because it made life comfortable. Today, trade is no longer cooperation. Supply chains are no longer neutral. Finance is no longer just finance. They are weapons. And in this new world, there is a brutal role, or you can say there is a brutal rule. You must understand, if you are not sitting at the table, then you are on the menu. That is the headlines here. This is not a warning from a general, not from a revolutionary, not from a philosopher. This is the warning comes from the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, speaking at Davos, the very heart of global power. So today's video is not about the Canada. It is about you. It is about your country and your future. Because the old world is gone now, and pretending otherwise may be the most dangerous choice of all. So stay with me till the end. The thing which I am going to discuss, that is important for your examination as well as for your interview perspective also. Okay. Now, so try to understand what is the context of this article here. First of all, we need to understand the context. In January 2026, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, he stood before the global leaders and he said something very direct, that the world you thought you lived in is over. For many years, the countries like Canada, they believe they live in a rule-based international order. Rule-based international order kya hota hai? It is a system where countries follow the rules, where they respect borders, they use diplomacy instead of force, and they cooperated on trade, climate as well as on security. But Mark Carney said this story was never fully true. And now it has completely collapsed. Why? Because of the US action on Venezuela. And after that, bold statements which are given by Donald Trump regarding Greenland, Canada and other countries. Now, the old story. What was the old story? And he said it was a comfortable lie. Okay. So, we need to understand that old story which is given in this editorial, as you can see here. Now, so as you can see here, the old story. Now, what is that old story? Which was actually a comfortable lie. So, after World War II, the world was largely shaped by the American power. It was a comfortable lie. That US actually provided safe sea lanes, a stable global financial system, security through alliances, and institutions like World Trade Organization, United Nations, and Conference of Parties climate talks. Smaller and middle-sized countries like Canada, these countries benefited greatly. They could trade freely, they grow rich, they promote human rights, and also avoid major wars. But Mark Carney admitted something important. The strongest countries, they also often broke the rules when it suited them. Trade laws were applied unevenly. International law punished some of the countries but ignored others. Still, middle powers, they accepted this. Why? Because the system mostly worked. So everyone pretended that the rules were equal. सभी ने pretend किया कि ये जो rules थे ये सारे equal थे. ठीक है. Now Mark Carney quoted one important personality, Václav Havel. जी हाँ. And living within a lie. As you can see here, Václav Havel, 1978 Czech dissident Václav Havel wrote an essay called as The Power of the Powerless. जी हाँ. So Mark Carney, he quoted Václav Havel. To explain this pretending, Carney quoted Václav Havel, who wrote famous essay in 1978, which is called as Power of the Powerless. ठीक है. Now, what Havel described in this essay? So Havel described a greengrocer in a communist Czechoslovakia. जी हाँ. So Havel described with the, or his answer began with greengrocer. Okay. Now what is this story? So I am going to tell you this story. See, so Havel described a greengrocer in a communist Czechoslovakia, and every morning the shopkeeper put a sign in his window, "Workers of the world unite." He used to put a sign in his window that workers of the world unite. He didn't believe it. No one believed it. But he put it up to avoid trouble, show obedience, and survive. Because everyone did this, the system survived, not because it was true, but because people acted as if it were true. So Havel called this as living within a lie, that we are living within a lie, as you can see here. That is why Mark Carney said that the world has been doing the same thing with the so-called rule-based order. Okay. Now, what is the rupture here? It is not a transition, but a break. Ji haan. So, with this, I would like to tell you that the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, he was very clear. This is not a transition. This is actually a rupture. And over the last 20 years, the world has faced financial crisis. The world has faced the pandemics. The world has faced energy shocks. The world faced wars. And these things expose the dangers of too much global dependence, that we are dependent on everything for major powers. Then something worse happened. Integration became a weapon. Ji haan, integration became a weapon. Great power began to use tariff as a pressure. Like Trump started doing this tariff as a to create the pressure, tariff as a weapon. Then great power began to use finance system as punishment, supply chains as choke points. So instead of cooperation, integration actually becomes coercion. And when this happens, ये कब हो रहा है? When WTO weakens, United Nations struggles, okay, global cooperation breaks down. So middle powers can no longer rely on the old institutions, they are going to protect the middle powers or small powers. Okay, so we need to understand this. ठीक है. Now, apart from this, the fortress of temptation. Many countries, they now believe they must protect themselves by building energy independence. अब बहुत सारी जो छोटी countries में, small countries, middle powers, they are actually believing that we need to build, we need to protect ourselves by building energy independence, by building food security, military strength, supply chain control. That is why Mark Carney said that this instinct is understandable. A country that cannot feed itself, a country that cannot fuel itself, a country that cannot, you can say, defend itself, has no real freedom today. But he wanted that a world of fortress will be poorer. है ना? Sorry. तो इन्होंने basically क्या कहा? अब एक चीज समझिएगा, he was actually targeting the Trump policies and the present global order. That is why Mark Carney, he warned that this world of fortress will be poorer, है ना, कि ये जो हमें institutions दिख रहे हैं, global based order दिख रहा है, this will be poorer, this will be more fragile and this will be more dangerous. So what can be the key insights here? Even great power have limits, and that is why Mark Carney made a sharp observation. Mark Carney ने क्या ऑब्जर्व किया? If great power abandon even the appearance of rules, then their allies lose trust, their influence weakens, their ability to monetize relationship declines. That is why allies should start diversifying the partners. We should not rely on one partner. We should actually we should diversify our partner. We should hedge the risk. We should bind the insurance. We should create new partnerships. So this actually restores the sovereignty, not through the rules, but through resilience. ठीक है? So what can be the solution for the middle power? तो अब middle powers के लिए क्या solution हो सकता है ना? So let's try to understand. So Canada PM, he said, now it is a wake up call, है ना? What can be the power? What can be the solution for middle powers? So countries like Canada, they are not helpless. First of all, they can share the cost of security. They can build common standards. They can cooperate on resilience. And this is cheaper and stronger than everyone standing alone. है ना? So here we can see that the choice is simple: build higher walls or build shared strength. या तो higher walls बना लो और build shared strength or shared risk or shared alliances. So what will be the Canada's new path? Now Canada's new path will be value based realism. जी हाँ, as you can see here, our new approach rests on what Alexander Stubb has termed value-based realism. जी हाँ, value-based realism. So Mark Carney said, Canada has already changed the course. Canada is inspired by Alexander Stubb. Canada follows value-based realism. ठीक है? So what are the principles that Canada follows? Respect sovereignty and borders. No use of force except under the UN Charter. Protection of human rights. Then what about pragmatism? So yes, Canada also following the pragmatic policies like accept the world as it is, work with imperfect partners, make progress step by step, and Canada will not wait for the perfect world. कि हमें step by step progress करनी होगी. We should not wait for the perfect world. Now Canada के PM ने ये भी कह दिया, we need to build strength at our home. जी हाँ, building strength at home. Since Carney's government took office, so Canada has cut taxes on income, capital gains, as well as business. Now his government also removed all federal barriers to inter-provincial trade. Now because of this, his government fast-tracked $1 trillion investment in energy, in artificial intelligence, in critical minerals, trade corridors, etc. With respect to defense, अगर हम defense की बात करें, so Carney's government actually doubled the spending on defense by 2030, and their focus was on domestic defense industries. जी हाँ, इनका focus किस पर है? Domestic defense industries, as you can see here. Okay, now apart from this, diversifying abroad. In just 6 months, Canada has actually signed, as you can see here, Canada has actually signed 12 trade and security deals. जी हाँ, Canada signed 12 trade and security deals across 4 continents. Canada also entered into a strategic partnership with European Union. Canada also joined, as you can see this, so Canada also joined the SAFE, European Defense Procurement System. Canada signed new partnership with China and Qatar. As you can see here, Canada signed new partnership with China and Qatar. And they are also negotiating trade pacts with India, ASEAN. So Canada began trade talks with India, ASEAN, Philippines, Thailand, Mercosur. Okay. So this is already started by Canada. So here we need to understand the variable geometry. So variable geometry, as you can see here, variable geometry, which is something related to different coalitions, है ना? Different coalitions, different issues. Now, अब Canada किन चीजों पर काम कर रहा है? Canada now works through issue-based coalitions, like Ukraine की अगर हम बात करें, so Canada is the member of the coalition of the willing. आर्कटिक की अगर हम बात करें, कैनेडा सपोर्ट्स ग्रीनलैंड एंड डेनमार्क कमिट्स to Article 5 of NATO. Canada also support NATO, that is strengthening the northern and western flanks. Clear? Canada also building a bridge, है ना, with respect to the trade as well as trade between Canada as well as European Union. Clear? Then Canada also supporting the critical minerals like Buyer Club under G7. Then Canada also cooperating on AI, है ना, like democratic cooperation to avoid the dominance by the hegemons or tech giants. So the most famous quoted line agar hum baat kare, so the most famous quoted line here, okay, now try to understand the most famous quoted line. Clear? If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Said by whom? Carney. Great powers, समझिएगा, great powers they can go alone, middle powers cannot. If middle powers negotiate alone with hegemon, they accept the weaker terms. They complete or they compete to please. They perform sovereignty without the real power. And true sovereignty always comes from acting together. ये याद रखिएगा. तो कार्ने ended where he began with truth, है ना. एंड टू लिव इन ट्रुथ का मतलब क्या होता है? स्टॉप प्रिटेंडिंग द ओल्ड ऑर्डर स्टिल वर्क्स, कि ऐसा नहीं कहना है हमें, है ना. अप्लाइंग द सेम स्टैंडर्ड्स टू फ्रेंड्स एज वेल एज राइवल्स, बिल्ड इंस्टीट्यूशंस दैट एक्चुअली फंक्शंस, रिड्यूस वल्नरेबिलिटी टू कोअर्शन. सो कैन दिस, ये एक्चुअली स्पीच जो थी मार्क कार्ने की, ये क्या शो कर रही है? दिस एक्चुअली शोज Canada's confidence. Canada believes that it has energy, critical minerals, the world's most educated population, powerful pension funds, fiscal capacity, democratic values, etc. And most importantly, अगर हम चीजें देखें, Canada has the courage to stop pretending. Canada is actually taking the sign down from the window that the old window is gone now, or the old world is gone. Nostalgia will not save anyone. Okay, but middle powers acting together, they can build something better, they can build something fairer, they can build something more honest. Okay, that is the scenario. So this was the speech of Mark Carney, है ना. So overall we can say that there is a reason this speech matters far beyond Canada. In 1978, a man named Vaclav Havel explained how powerful systems survive, not through force alone, but through obedience to lies also. A shopkeeper hangs a slogan that he does not believe. A citizen repeats a story that they know is false. A country praises the rules that no longer protect it. That is how empire endures. And until one day, someone takes the sign down, है ना. So Mark Carney's speech is not about rebellion, it is about honesty that the old order is fractured, honesty that the great powers now use integration as coercion, honesty that middle powers cannot survive alone, but together they can shape history. So this is not nostalgia, this is actually idealism. And see, this is not nostalgia, and you can say this is not idealism also. This is realism with a spine. जी हाँ, ये idealism भी नहीं है. This is realism with spine. Remember this thing. The future will not belong to the strongest alone. It will belong to those who see the world clearly, who build strength at home, who reduce vulnerability and act together. Because sovereignty is not a flag, it is not a speech, it is not even a power. Sovereignty is a choice. Clear? The ability to say no without being crushed, that is sovereignty. The old order is not coming back, and that is not a tragedy. The tragedy would be continued to pretend that this old order still exists. The sign is coming down, the table is being rebuilt, and history is once again asking a dangerous question: will you sit together or be served separately? What is your view? So thank you for watching this video. I hope this issue, this speech is clear to all of you. Thank you so much.